So welcome to the Conscious Creators Community, episode 6, why changing your life can be lonely, and why so many people turn back, and what awaits you if you don't turn back. So our co-created community, the Conscious Creators Community, has one goal: to empower and facilitate positive transformation. We aim to do that personally, collectively, and on a global scale. In episode 6, we're here to discuss loneliness that people experience when making positive changes in their life. When we're on a transformational journey, which all of us have been on and most of us are on, there are moments where we feel like there's nobody understands us and it can be quite lonely. And so what do we do there? So I'm going to start by asking you, hey, everybody on Facebook, all a question. You can be as brief or as detailed as you like. So if you'd like to introduce yourself and ask the question, answer the big question, what is loneliness? Jeff, you're first on my screen.
Oh, awesome. Loneliness is feeling cut off from other people, not feeling connected, in my opinion. You could be in a room full of people and still be lonely. So it's not about being in proximity to them, but being actually not there, not connected.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Jeff. That's awesome. And John, I'm going to go to you. You're next on my screen.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I completely agree, of course. And I think loneliness is just being cut off. It's possible to be, very connected to, let's say, nature or to even watching a situation or something like that. So I don't think loneliness is a physical issue, but it's a presence or absence of connection. So, and yeah, I'm John. My main focus is how to view what I call create an adventure attitude. So I was especially interested in what we're talking about here today, and I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you. Awesome. Anna, you're next.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Anna, an artist and a mentor. I combine mindfulness and creativity when I help people. Loneliness. I know a lot about loneliness. I've been lonely my entire life. And for me, loneliness, like Jeff was saying, it's about disconnection. And I know what that means. I've been disconnected from not only the people around me, but myself included. For me, loneliness is symbolized very vividly in self-image. For me, I grew up with people who did not look like me, did not think like me, did not act like me. And I remember looking in the mirror and not recognizing who I was. I couldn't place myself. And that's what I think the ultimate disconnection is disconnection with ourselves. Yeah, loneliness is hard.
Like that a lot. Thank you, Anna. Sil, you're next on my screen. You're okay to introduce yourself and answer the question? Oh, I think his internet just went as he started speaking, unfortunately. That's the first. So, Joey, you're next on my screen, and we'll get back to Sil when he comes back.
Loneliness for me is much like what Jeff said. I feel like the times I felt the loneliness was when I was around people that I couldn't connect with, or they didn't understand me, or it's like feeling invisible. I guess would be the best description. Feeling alien or feeling invisible, feeling completely just where nobody gets you, or just feeling like nobody cares enough to see you. Yeah.
Right. Beautiful. Yeah, I love that a lot. Thank you. And I'm going to jump back to Sil because he was about to go. Have you got audio now?
Yes, I
Yeah.
know the whole thing just dropped off. I know, it kicked me right out. So, so from way of impeccability, for me, I see loneliness as a belief, but a profound misbelief. And I'll rather define loneliness into me what it's not, so that in its definition, I also have the resolution. I see loneliness as the absence of independence of being. I'll leave it right there.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Oh, that's a
Yeah,
nice
it's a
one
lot
there.
to
Yeah.
that. That's why I'm going to leave it there, because otherwise we can do the whole show just on
Yeah,
that.
the whole show's finished now.
Exactly.
So,
Drop
yeah.
the mic. Drop the mic.
Thank you. Yeah, mute him quickly. Right. Jen Stover, you're next.
Hi there.
Hi.
I'm Jen. Thanks for having me. I'm a neuroscience-based educator, mentor, and founder of the Human Infusion Project. This is a nonprofit project that creates online presentations and classes that help people accelerate their healing in between their therapeutic sessions. For me, I see loneliness as a separation. I think it's also the times I've experienced it as an adult has been when I've been in transition. And I think that's kind of a little bit of what will come out of today's show, is recognizing that loneliness, that feeling of disconnection. I mean, we're wired to be in community. So anytime that we feel shut off from that, leaves that kind of hollow, misunderstood, and alienated feeling in your body. And often I found that it indicates I'm in transition, which is very natural, actually.
Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. And Anthony, you're next on my screen.
Hey, everyone. So I'll a couple of things. One aspect that I see around loneliness. Well, we know for a fact that loneliness is increasing. People are experiencing loneliness more today because there's a lot of disconnection from not only themselves and not only community and relationships, but also meaning and purpose. You know, when we evolved, we had roles that were way more defined based on whatever, you know, sort of made sense. Now we have access to all this possibility, and it's very overwhelming. So we're disconnected from purpose in some senses. And also there's an aspect that I wanted to share about a sense of safety in loneliness, feeling like you're safe enough to be authentic, to be your true self, and to share deeper parts of you is something that, if you don't have it, will also create loneliness. So that, yeah, that's my couple of thoughts for now.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you for that, Anthony. Really good. Paul, you're next on my screen. If you'd like to introduce yourself and say what loneliness is for you.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Paul. As Mao already said, I'm a shamanic teacher and healer. I also own a small pagan witchcraft and shamanism shop. What I do with people, how I help them, I use mythology and story as a way to help people understand their life script, unweave that, and then reweave a new one. It's like the short version. Loneliness. I'm going to strike out and go down a different route. So loneliness for me, I think definitely I agree that loneliness has a lot to do with our connection or lack of connection. I think there's an abundance of connection around us that we can choose from. And we tend to seek out connections from people. And I think sometimes the desire for connection is superseded by our attachment to connection. And our attachment to connections, people-to-people connections, is more about distraction from the fact that often we don't like ourselves. There are so many aspects of ourselves that we disapprove of, we don't like, we're not happy with, we don't want it, we don't want to have to deal with it. So a little bit like how boredom, when we feel bored, it's all about trying to find the distraction and activity to do. So we don't have to sit with this, oh God, I don't like myself, or I don't like this part of myself. our attachments to the connections with others are often also driven by this idea that we don't like aspects of ourselves. So what we're trying to do is run away from that loneliness, that sense of self. It's actually about running away from us. Like I said, there's a plethora of connections that we can build with. There's connections, like for me as a shaman, with the spirits, with nature, our ancestors. Connection is all around us. But again, when we seek attachment to connections with others, it's all driven by this idea that we don't like ourselves. So loneliness starts to set in. Loneliness really is about running away from ourselves, because we can stand alone. We can stand alone and be ourselves. I'm used to standing alone. I dress very differently from most people I know, and I'm used to being alone, but that doesn't make me lonely, because I like this aspect of me, and I seek out genuine connections when it's that's my little bit. Thank you.
Brilliant. Oh, Paul, thank you. That was awesome. Sander, you're next.
Yeah. Do I also introduce myself, Matt? Or
yes, please do. Yeah, of course.
Necessary? Yeah. Because I participated in a few calls. Hello, everybody. My name is Sander. I'm a body worker / embodiment coach from the Netherlands. Yeah, I find it a difficult question to describe what loneliness really is for me. But in general, most people already share that it's a feeling of disconnect. From my own process, I feel that that place of loneliness is actually a place of space, and before, but it's actually a place of transformation. And normally we are scared of being in emptiness, but that emptiness is not empty. So that's how I see the loneliness. Or being lonely. You're not lonely, you're expanding yourself.
Brilliant. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. And Rita, you're next on my screen.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Rita, and I'm working constantly on energies, but also much with the DNA. So for activation and the transformation. For me, I just actually had to taste the word loneliness, because I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. And even when I was in 5 days in the mountains without food, I never felt lonely. It was music in the rivers. It was, yeah. So for me, actually, I miss being lonely to be in my peace. And what Anthony said is to be safe, just being you. And for me, this disconnection with the world around is actually necessary for get the messages from divine, from the inside, to know what's yours, what's not yours. So yes.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think that's really a really great perspective, and it's nice to see. Yeah, I think interesting. You don't know what loneliness is, and I like that a lot. So Brenda, you're next.
Hi, I'm Brenda. I'm a Reiki master and shamanic energy healer. And I was lonely in my marriage for a long time. I just felt like I had no connection in my marriage, and it kind of kept me from connecting with other people. But then now I live on my own with my cat. She's over there. And I feel much more connected. But through my shaman work, being connected to Mother Earth and spirits, and like somebody else was saying, shaman connections, ancestors and guides and all sorts of things. And I'm now, and connection to creator and all life, and we're part of the one. And now I'm happy being me, and I'm attracting thoughtful, kind, like-minded people. So like say you could be in a room with 100 people and be lonely, but the people I'm attracting now are much better. And sometimes when you're doing a transition, you do have to be alone for a little bit, but that's just to go inside yourself. It's like like the caterpillar goes into the cocoon and comes out the butterflies. It's just a small amount of time that you're going to maybe be by yourself, but there's going to be huge rewards at the end. You know, you're going to feel better, like some people have said, better in your own skin, better connected to yourself, better knowing yourself. So I highly recommend transition. If you're lonely, you're going to just probably stay lonely. But if you take that jump and try transition and change and be the weird person, it doesn't matter. We're all weird here, I think, in our own way, and we love it. So it's not called weird, it's called unique, and we can be unique and in ourselves and true to ourselves and still be connected to everything. So I think it's really great. I hope everybody learns something here today, because we have a lot of information to share, and we're all nice people.
We are indeed, and I hope so too. I'm already learning stuff, so I'm sure other people are as well. So Anastasia, you're next.
Hi, I'm Anastasia, and I'm a transformation coach. I remember feeling lonely a long time ago, way before I started on my self-development path. And really what it was about, it was a lack of connection. It was a lack of awareness of myself. And it wasn't so much a physical loneliness, like there wasn't somebody around. It was more of the, trying to be with people who I resonated with. So like others have said, I found myself feeling lonely in a room full of people. And if I couldn't connect, if I couldn't resonate, and I had to say things or talk about things that I wasn't interested in, that to me feels lonely. Whilst wind down, 20 years on, I don't even know what the word means anymore. I don't get lonely. And as I develop more and as I communicate with others across the veil, we're never alone. I know it's not about being alone. It's, loneliness. It's about connection, but there's always at least one, if many more beings to connect with. So if anything, I could use some time to myself.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, thank you. So Gabe, you're next on my screen. You'd like to introduce yourself and answer the question.
Hello, everybody. Gabe with Stress Relief for Teachers on Facebook and for everybody. So loneliness is a downregulated emotion, right? And that's what I practice, emotional energy, and how to get it flowing so that we can self-regulate and heal ourselves. And when we're feeling lonely, we're depriving ourselves. We have a craving or a desire for something that's missing in our lives. And, that feeling comes attached to a memory or an event that causes this way to shift energetically this way. And, it's something that's based on, most times, in my experience, the absence of love. And this is why love is such an important emotion, because it actually heals just about everything, one step at a time, but it'll raise the vibrations on anybody who's lonely. So being lonely is really a lie. It's a belief. It's a paradigm that we learn based on that particular event that caused us to feel lonely. And if we choose, which we can't, to believe that we are entangled, that we're really never alone, there's always somebody there, especially oneself. When we start to care about ourselves again and just shift that energy a little bit at a time, we start to realize that we're not alone. And we can thrive alone and really do great things and actually help others along the way. So don't be lonely, because you really never are. You have everybody in this room, in this panel, and of course, everybody in the world who wants to help. And we really do. We want to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabe. That's awesome. And Cher.
Hi, I'm Cher. Trauma recovery specialist, recovery writer, author. Loneliness to me, I've been listening to everybody, fantastic descriptions of loneliness, because I hit all of them. How I sum it up is that for me, it is a deep belief that unless I can make sense of myself in the world, nothing is going to connect. I will not connect, and I can be out in the world. But as long as something isn't making sense about myself, as long as I don't understand me, that loneliness is going to be pervasive. I lived it, been there, done that. And it still happens from time to time. But yeah, it all has to make sense. And then when it finally does, that's when I start to feel like I belong. I matter and I make a difference.
Thank you. Yes, so beautiful. And such a good point there. So today we came mainly to talk about the transformational journey. And so what causes people to start to feel loneliness when they're in transition, when they're making change in their life? I mean, Gabe, yes.
Yeah, well, I started to feel lonely when I started to understand my emotions and why I'm being stymied. And you know, I started to really dive into my thoughts and question myself. So I learned Socratic questioning, you know, because apparently Socratic questions makes the brain want to search for an answer. And as I'm going through this lonely period, I'm really starting to understand again that it's just an emotion, right? I chose to feel this way because I am disconnected. And I was disconnected from a lot of things in my life, not by choice, but because we learn to disconnect. We just do. We experience things on a daily basis that sometimes we don't even question. We just accept it as like self-defeating, you know, way of being. And it's like, okay, that's life. It doesn't have to be like that. I learned to make my own decisions that helped me feel less lonely about my days. And as I was progressing and learning how to regulate my flow, I started to attract that which I desired, that which was missing, the positive side of my life. There was too much focus on loneliness. There was too much focus on feeling lonely, being lonely, wanting to be lonely, instead of focusing on wanting to be with somebody, you know, wanting to be connected with people in a positive stage that actually inspired me even more. So that made me want to even learn more about my loneliness, to the point where I was like, that's silly, I'm not lonely. It's impossible to be lonely if we keep our brain busy in a productive activity. And one great activity is wanting not to feel lonely. I know it sounds silly to say that, but there's a step above not feeling lonely. And there's another one after that. So it's all about raising your vibrations. If we pay attention to that solution, when you say, are you lonely? You'll never say that again. I never feel lonely anymore, but it took time. It took me about 6 months to 8 months in my life not to feel disconnected from my family and friends in the United States. From the people here where I live now in Ecuador and South America, I felt isolated because I have a different demeanor, way of thinking. So having to put everything together and make it fit was my task. I got through that. And I love the fact that I understand my loneliness and it really doesn't exist. I've never been lonely. I was just confused about that, if anything. So I'm glad that I understand that. And I hope everybody learns to be able to understand their loneliness as well. It's not that critical.
No, I'm muted. Right. So yeah, awesome. It is. Yeah, it isn't that critical. It's quite an experience. John, you wanted to.
Yeah, I think loneliness is what we might call a meta perception. It's not a direct perception of anything, but it's like when we expect something that we don't get. That is that expectation of, you know, what you need, what's available, what's needed, and so on. I worked at a hotel in India, and everybody would have their own separate room in this hotel, but over the night they would come visiting each other until they were all in one room. So they were paying for their separate rooms, but they felt too lonely in a separate hotel room by themselves. And because, you know, they hadn't been in a room without other people in their whole lives. So I think it's that expectation that's a secondary construction that we have about loneliness.
Thank you, John. Sander, you're next.
Yeah, I think or from my own experience, when I encountered loneliness in my life, it was always a turning point or a point of change. So a certain period ending or a certain situation ending, where there was this change going on. And as I mentioned earlier, that feeling of loneliness is the freeing up of space in yourself where you previously had that thing that is no longer there, or the situation or the person not occupying that space. So it's like you are feeling empty or feeling a certain emptiness, but it's actually the space that was occupied by something else before. And what we humans tend to do is we want to feel emptiness, but it's not really the emptiness because it's not empty, if that makes sense. So, yeah. It's and for me, that's what loneliness is. It's like feeling that space wherein you can create something new or start discovering yourself.
Yeah, I can really relate actually to the things you said. I've been there myself, and I love the way the familiarity thing. I think this is quite an important point, especially in the transition.
It's, for instance, when a relationship stops, and you're not the one breaking up the relationship, you want to fill that void with a new relationship instead of looking at that situation. And it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, but to start filling up the void that was left by the previous relationship. And that can be a relationship to whatever. It can be a relationship to person, object, anything. And key is to start witnessing what is going on there. What's going on? Why do I want to fill that empty space, and what do I do not want to see from myself or experience from myself in that space?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things for me that is like, especially in transformation is quite a big word when you're just thinking about eating healthily or doing more or doing more exercise or something, but it's still a transformation in yourself. And often when we haven't had these habits and we try and introduce these habits into our life, the people that we used to be around, we suddenly get this feeling of loneliness because when we're around them, it's hard to be the person we want to be, for sure. So,
and in that space or in that void that's there, that's where you can do the transformation.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. Actually, well, when you realize that, but that's something we'll probably get into a bit more. When you realize that, Paul, you wanted to add something. I know on a phone it's hard to unmute, isn't it?
There you go. Did it. Sorry, it's too far along on the menu. I kind of want to go back to what I said about the attachment to connection. Right. If you think about why anyone ever goes on a transformational journey, right? Like we kind of said there's lots of different reasons why people do it, but we said that at some point in our lives there's a moment where the person we are is not a match for the person we want to be, or the dream that we want to have, or the life that we want to have. So we begin to question who we are, right? So we step out on this journey. At some point in that journey, in those moments, we become aware of the behaviors that we've used to create connection in the past. And within any story, there are probably dozens of behaviors, right, that are interwoven into that story and how we've met our needs. Let's say people pleasing. Right. So if you formed connections, for example, around people pleasing your entire life, and all of a sudden you become aware that actually this is a behavior that doesn't work in your benefit, and it's not part of this new story you want to write, well, then you're going to how do I form meaningful connections at this point? How do I make friends? How do I communicate with people? If how I've done it all these years before is by finding all of these ways that I could be what everyone else expects me to be the people pleaser, to be the yes man. I know this story because it was my story. Well, at some point you have to question yourself and you go, right, so now what do I do? Loneliness then steps in. Again, I'm going to come back to this idea, what I said before, that loneliness really is the attachment to connection, not understanding that we are infinitely connected. Now, if you hang around any spiritual community long enough, right, there's this idea that there's this concept of oneness, right? We're all one. So if we're all one and we're all connected, how can there ever be an experience of loneliness? You can just pick it, and again, from a shamanic perspective, even inanimate objects, my cup, there's a spirit, everything is spirit. You might say everything's energy, right? So the moment I pick up this cup, I'm forming some form of connection to it. Does it fulfill me? I don't know. It's a cup. I use it to drink. It's a tool. But the point is that there's connection all around us. It's in the sitting with ourselves and the finding the bits that we don't like. And again, going back to how we formed connection in the past, people pleasing, self-sabotage, all those other kind of behaviors that don't really fulfill us. Those are our predominant way that we've created connection in the past, and now we don't have that. Now we're just sat with ourselves with perhaps less people around us to distract us, and then we have to really ask those really deep, hard questions of ourselves. And that's where the true loneliness comes in, because again, it's not about connection, it's about attachment to any old connection. That's loneliness in the transformational journey.
Yeah, sure. And the lack of attachment to your own connection. I love that. Thank you, Jen.
Not a great stuff you guys are hitting on. Your original question, I think, was something along the lines of what contributes to loneliness or the experience of loneliness, and we can technically say yes, it's a perspective. It's the way you view detachment or feeling separated. I also, from my experience, know that it was something I experienced, like I said, when I was in transition. It was kind of this no man's land of where I was letting go of coping mechanisms that were known and I relied on and I used to navigate the world as almost like part of my identity. And I was in the process of letting that go, but had not yet, still hadn't embraced or connected to myself and what the new was going to be or what I wanted. And so in that in between kind of unmoored, shapeless, in process kind of space, you don't even know what to offer or how to connect with other people, because you yourself, as many have said in different words, are still trying to figure out who you are. So yeah, or what you want to represent and how that looks like. And there's almost a grieving process that kind of goes on as you're letting go of these things that we've become really familiar with and used to. And now we're having to let that go, and we're moving towards the thing we want to be experience more. But there's this vague space in between where we flounder and feel a little bit like it's hard to connect because you don't know what it is that you want to experience. And although I now understand completely that we are all bound together by this really fundamental humanity shared experience, that's a higher level place to get to. And when I was in transition, I couldn't relate to that at that time. I just needed somebody there to be available and to know that I wasn't crazy for feeling so unmoored is the best word I can describe. So
brilliant. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, really, really important share there. Thank you, Jen. Joey.
I get so lost in the conversation. I love it. What was I going to say? I wanted to say that, you know, yeah, the direction of the conversation was going towards like what we felt loneliness was. And there was like a lonely in my life before I went on, you know, an awakening journey, a transformation journey. And the loneliness that I think people who are just starting, you know, just kind of jumping into learning about themselves and their coping mechanisms and dropping their masks and unmasking and unpacking and all that other stuff. It is that it's like we're here to tell you that like if you're watching like we're here to tell you that like there is a period of time where you know who you were and you don't know who you are. And when you don't know who you are, everyone that expects you to be who you were starts having their own little freak out, because transformation doesn't happen in a vacuum. When you make a change, let's on an energetic level, when you make a change, say you vibrate different, you act different, you speak different, maybe you use different language. And that tiny change that you make, even if it's the smallest change, it ripples out through your current community, right? And so you're choosing change. And what I've noticed with people who have really delved into the transformation process is that there's a level of compassion you have to come to where you're choosing change, and you have to remember that everyone around you is not choosing that change for you. And in that can be a loneliness or a feeling of unsupport or a feeling of being unseen, right? Because you know you're doing something, you want to do something for yourself, it's expansive for you. And you inadvertently are changing everybody's, it's like a soup, right? We're all in a soup together, and you're changing your ingredient to something different. It's going to affect the whole soup, right? And some people are not going to like the taste of that soup. And they're going to, there's going to be pushback, there's going to be question, there's going to be all sorts of stuff. And you're going to feel like the random, you know, cinnamon stick that used to be garlic, right? And it just, when you change, it just throws everything into this what I have learned to love, this beautiful chaos, this beautiful mystery. But that chaos and that mystery can be alienating in the beginning. It can alienate you from everything, from your own identity. It can alienate you from your community and your family. It can alienate you from your peers. It can alienate you from your old dreams that have expired. And that feeling of alienation, I think, is that all of us can say it's the beautiful spot we had to go through.
Yeah.
But when you're in it, it sucks. And we just want you to know that that we get that it sucks. And
for sure. Yeah.
And that it's a natural reaction, like it's a chain reaction. Transformation is not in a vacuum. When you start changing, everything around you will be touched. Even if you just get a new diet, everything around you will be touched. You stop drinking, everything around you will be touched. You wake up at 6 instead of 10, everything around you will be touched. So expect the pushback, expect the alienation, and prepare yourself for an enormous amount of future support and love and connection and unloneliness.
Brilliant.
I think that's what I have to say.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's really true. There's when you make change and you sort of transitioning and you're still maybe socializing or around people who know you as you were, it can feel really unfamiliar, which can make it feel really uncomfortable, which can make you feel like you don't fit in anymore, when really you're just trying to find that new you where you're going to fit in and be the next ingredient for the new mystery soup recipe. So, Sil.
Brilliant. Just to continue on a bit from what Joanne was saying, in the context of when we learn and we change and we grow, and there's real change and growth, why we might feel lonely for a couple of reasons. One, by implication, others around you who also feel the need to learn and know they have a need to learn and grow and change, but might not be as motivated. When you come along and you suddenly change and you really make that effort and you really do change, what happens by implication? By implication, you're saying, if I can change, so can you, which takes away all the excuses. Now, this is not going to necessarily make you very popular. And sometimes your friends who cling to their excuses of not changing are going to resent you for changing and growing and learning, because you've robbed them of all the excuses. Now it's also all bullshit that, hey, you know what? You're just indulging in self-pity or whatever. So this can lead to an alienation a little bit from those who know you, because by implication, you kind of show them up. Secondly, when we really learn and grow, are we not going outside the boundaries of what we know? Right? That's by definition, I know and learn is something I don't know. So when I learn and grow and there's true, real change, I'm stepping into the unknown, or as I prefer to call it, moreness. But in that moreness, things are new, they're unfamiliar. And here I might feel, oh, I'm really not seeing it. And I'm a bit disconnected because it's new and unfamiliar. That doesn't necessarily have to be so, of course. Like John will tell you, you can see it as an adventure. Just change your perspective and you change your relationship to the unknown. You can shift the unknown from being the unknown to moreness. But this feeling of newness and discomfort, which is a little bit of lack of confidence, can lead us to feel lonely, which brings me back to independence of being. If I have independence of being and I want to define this somewhat, it's a big topic, but just for the purposes of our discussion here, as a sense of completeness, of wholeness, doesn't mean that there's not more to learn, but I feel that where I am at now is enough. And I can say, well, I'm enough, but I am also more. So I'm enough as I am doesn't mean that I'm not keen to have more, right? You know, I'm happy with my $1 million, but I'll take the extra million if you want to give me the second one, no problem. So when we have this sense of completeness and wholeness, now it's almost impossible to feel lonely. And if we look at loneliness now as a disconnection from that wholeness, we start to understand a bit better and see that, oh, I'm really looking to connect to myself through others. And paradoxically, you might think independence of being, I'm just my own bubble, that's going to make it, you know, more difficult to connect. No, the reverse. When we're incomplete and we're not whole, in other words, when we're needy and desperate, this makes it very difficult to connect. Who wants to connect to somebody who's needy and desperate? It's very tough, right? And also, you're looking to connect not to the other person, but to what's missing in you. When I've got completeness and wholeness, I can connect to you because I am stable, I'm balanced, and I can actually connect. I'm not looking to connect to something artificial, something that is a need and a desperation. There's a very big connection here between everything, between being independent, being complete and whole, and this feeling of loneliness, which is incompleteness, unwholeness, and you're looking essentially to get back to yourself, which in the end, we're always alone. And if you cannot be alone with yourself, you're by definition going to be alone. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's definitely got a lot to do with self-acceptance and knowing yourself and following your own vision and not looking outside for acceptance, which I think many of us do. Many of us grow up feeling unacceptable, and we get used to going out with people that say, you're funny, you're great, I love you for this. And we almost forget that we need to be sure of those things ourselves. And
exactly.
Yeah, and that's where the loneliness comes from. Anastasia.
Sorry, Matt, just a very quick point to add on there. And this is what I was saying about misbelief. Loneliness is a misbelief. We believe we need to have acceptance, approval, all this other stuff. That's what causes it. Profound misbelief. We don't need that nonsense.
Brilliant. Thank you. Anastasia. Let's see.
Is Bina before me?
No, I think this is it, staying in order. I think. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure. I just wanted to expand on the points made before and the points just made by you, Matt, which is this, we're afraid when we're trying to transform in a way and transition into a new level, we're afraid of leaving people behind, and is that loneliness of, and I know I've experienced this myself, and I know it has become a block with a lot of people I worked with, and some of them to the point where they were afraid of the transformation because, you know, you don't really want to leave your family and friends behind and change so much that you can no longer connect on the level that you were connecting before. So I just want to, you know, to put this message out to anybody really who's watching and who's going through this for the first time, that this is temporary, and this kind of loneliness is temporary, and it's followed by a new and slightly different way of connecting with the people that are close to you, and even better, the sort of big close connection then is replaced by other people who enter your life. So this happens when we transition into a sort of a different level, and then the people that were closest to us are replaced by other people until you sort of transition so many times and make the changes, the necessary changes to improve your life and develop yourself to the point where you no longer care. It's not a block anymore. It doesn't really matter. You are so focused on what needs to happen to you to improve and to reach your goal of life, that becomes paramount, and the connection with yourself becomes the biggest connection, and the connection to others then is a lovely bonus. But the connection that you have from that place of I'm connecting myself, I'm accepting myself exactly as I am and the needs I have, and whoever I connect with from this place is a much, much more powerful and valuable point to be from. It's a much more beautiful place to be in.
Yes, yeah, thank you for sharing. That's really crucial for everybody. Now, Bina, think you were next. I'm trying my best to follow this. There's quite a few people.
No problem. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for such a rich discussion, because you guys shared so much and I just love that. And of course, I'm going to just share my understanding, what you guys were sharing, and of course, a bit mine. First thing for me, that loneliness is a choice. Sorry, my camera is working funny. Okay. So it's a choice. Again, I would say that because we are actually, we can be alone by circumstances, but loneliness is our choice. And we have a messed up idea of connections, because we assume that okay, it's a kind of very rigid expectations we have, that okay, the connection has to be like this or that. But connections, as Gab was saying, and of course everybody else was saying that connections are there. Paul was also saying that, the same thing, that connections are available. We have people and of course entities and beings available. We can connect with other people. We can connect with other beings. We can connect with universe. We can connect with the nature. So connections are available, but we have a very kind of fixed and rigid idea of connectivity. So that's why we feel lonely. So it's a choice, but we don't take responsibility. In most cases, we don't take responsibility of our choice. That okay, yes, oh, I'm feeling lonely. Second thing, when we actually commit to transform ourselves or grow ourselves and then learn, this is also a choice to be getting out of that comfort zone, getting out of that same company, getting out of that known place. So it is also like that okay, when you have decided to go out and meet someone else, you will go out of your home. So you will be alone in that process. So this is again a very very interesting thing, that we make choices and then we forget about that and we say, oh my God, I'm lonely here. Nobody is actually supporting me or anything, but it's a choice we have made. The third thing for me, it is about that we outgrow people, as other people were also saying that. We outgrow people, but we don't connect with the people because we are also in process. So we haven't reached yet. It's like, for me, it is exactly like acrobats, when they swing in a circus, mostly when they are on swing, they just keep going. And at the time comes when they have to leave the swing they are on. And before reaching the next one, they are in a void. It's a very risky, it's a very desperation kind of a situation they put themselves in, but it's a choice. They have to leave that swing behind and be in that void, be in the air without anything, without a ground underneath, without anything to hold on. And then there's a point come, then they will reach the other swing. So this process in between, we get so overwhelmed by that, but sometimes it is just like we forget that we have made this choice. So for me, loneliness is a choice. We don't take responsibility, or we don't make it deliberately. It's like, okay, yes, I was committed to but we don't feel that connectivity just because our focus has been shifted. So for me, it is just about my own choices, just being deliberate, just to be more open and see that, yes, the connections are still there. Yes, not as my expectations, not as they were in my comfort zone before, but this is my choice and I'm in the process. This loneliness, which is a very kind of a word with with so many negative association, but it's a process. So loneliness, not only a choice, but also it's a process. We have to accept that. And then everything will be fine and beautiful.
Brilliant. Thank you. Yes, so that's awesome. Rita, you want to go? You're muted.
Yes. I think and believe we all have some kind of contracts before we come here, a soul contract. And when that's call us, we have no choice. It's like a surrender for everything that we have been and what we are becoming. And I think also this is frequency. So when people leave you, family, your whole life is for something new to appear. But to take the step, you have to do it yourself. So, and what I experienced, there are more here in this group about the shamans, and so fragments, soul fragments. We have mostly met the people we meet before. So just to actually see who are appearing in your life. How can you know the universe behind the other person? When I got in this country, I just, wow, okay. And I even have people who remember me. So, and actually as a wife. So
as a wife, wow.
As a wife, yes.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I'm just, what the hell? but yes, it's like, oh my God, I love to see you again. See you again. I'm so sorry for the last time, blah, blah, blah. But for me, it's just like, it's timelines, it's soul fragments. It's every person I meet can show me something about myself. And the old life, it was not good. I was done with this kind of people, this kind of environment, and yeah, it's for living your dream. You have to make space, letting go, so you can be open and rebuild yourself with self-love and know love again. But first for yourself, so you can attract more good stuff in your life. And that's frequency.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, that's, I mean, things that really stood out for me there were specifically like that people show you something in yourself. So when you are changing, other people who you suddenly feel this disconnection to, often it's because they're still they're not changing, and it's hard for you to continue with your change when somebody's
Absolutely.
influencing you with the energy.
You are dragging down in some energy all the time, but I also recognize how much of my energy I actually gave away to other people problems. Because I'm so strong in the emotions. So it was like, wow, I'm worried about other people's journey. What the fuck? It's not my responsibility. So when I got totally alone, burned everything down, it was the observation of self, how I respond to people, if I see people, and like these people don't write, no technology. Is like, okay, we have to try communicate. But in the start, they were just angry because, oh, you don't understand the shit. You are stupid. And they got sad. They got sad. But when I say, okay, I don't understand you, but I see you, I want to communicate, because everyone needs to be seen. If you're not seen, you're nothing. So, and that's the biggest problem also with children. If they are not seen for who they are, their emotions, their feelings, their dreams, okay, it will break. So to find that back again, I think the soul just knock on your door and say, okay, it's time now. So to surrender.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And Brenda, you're next on my list, on my screen. Still muted for some reason. If I press this, is it really...
Matt, I think she locked herself out by mistake.
Okay, Anna, do you want
There I got it. There I got it.
Brenda, right, brilliant. There we go.
Okay. Lots of conversations here, and I have a couple of things to say about going back to an older conversation. I didn't like myself at all. We had talked about why people change. So I didn't like myself at all. Who I had become from people pleasing and being upset and venting about my life. And I didn't like this person. So that's when I decided to take a chance and try and change. And I thought, well, I'll see who I've become, who I can become. And I might like that person better than the person that I was, the complainer and everything. And I thought I can always go back to the old me. So if people are worried about transition, you could always go back to the old you, but you just won't want to, because you'll just love being the new you. And people talk about how do you make new friends? And I think just being you and being authentic, you'll attract really nice people, the really right type of people for you. The people that you're with now might not be the right people. And maybe they were the right people for this first part of your journey. And then for the next part of your journey, the next 10 years, the next 5 years, who knows, different kind of people are going to come. So people don't have to be with you forever. You can still love the people, you can still care about them, but sometimes you just don't need to hang around with them. And it makes room for the new people. And just two short things I wanted to say. Somebody was talking about the soup of life, Joanne.
Yeah.
I love that. I say that to people. Do you want to put more crap in the soup of life? Because we're all in it like a hot tub. We're in the soup. Do you want to put more crap in it? Or do you want to be responsible and just take your crap out and make the world a little bit better place? And what Paul said about connecting to his cup, my God, since I was a teenager, my car is not a girl, like everybody else has a girl ship and a girl car. My car's a boy, and his name is Car, K-A-R. Before I ever got into energy healing, I just knew his name was Car. He's always protected me. I always protect him. I'm never alone when I'm with him. I talk to him, and I'll be crazy enough that if I have a dish and I bang it on the sink, I'm like, oh, sorry. But then I'm Canadian, eh?
Oh, I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing. So important, Brenda. Anna.
Oh, this is so fun. I love hearing people's different perspectives on this, on any subject. It's always enlightening. I wanted to talk about the fact that as we grow up, especially when we're younger, around middle school, high school, one of the most important things for us is to fit in, is to feel like we are a part of a whole. And it's like a puzzle, you know, we're all individuals and we want to fit our piece of the puzzle into the whole. Unfortunately, if you are a creative person, you're never going to fit because you think different. You are someone who can take leaps of imagination into places, worlds that don't exist yet. And when Joey was talking about the soup and putting the cinnamon stick in the soup, I just started laughing because I can totally relate to that. When I was in my early 20s and I was just newlywed, I wanted to cook. My husband at the time was the one that was the most busy. He was still in school and he had a job, and I had a part-time job, but I was newly in the country, so I couldn't really work that much. So I dedicated myself to developing my culinary skills, because that was an act of love for me to cook and to serve good food. But I'm a creative person, so I started inventing, and I made one day I made steak with cinnamon. Which is not a bad thing. Actually, it can work if you add other things to it. There are a lot of dishes in the world that combine savory and sweet ingredients that work really well. But my point with that is I felt horrible. I felt so bad that I had made a mistake in my exploration. Now I know better. I know that it's really extremely important to explore, to experiment, to make mistakes, to find out what your unique piece is. Because that's what it's all about. We come into this world, like Rita was talking about, the soul. The soul comes into this world complete and all-knowing, but it comes into a really dumb body, a body that has no experience, that has to learn everything all over again. So when you're young and you find yourself as a creative person, totally different, thinking different ways, wanting to experience things that are just really out there, and your friends don't really understand what that is. I remember having a group of friends and they liked me because for that exact reason, because I was different, because I was interesting, but I didn't feel like I was interesting. I felt out of place. I fit. I didn't understand that I had to explore who I was first and understand what my unique piece was all about before I could fit in. And it is extremely important to do that. And it takes courage. It takes a lot of courage to explore who you are creatively. We can't help it. We are creative people. We can't help but create everything that's around us. And I think it was Vina that talked about it's basically our choice to either be lonely or not lonely. It's true. And the choice comes from that creative place to continue to explore the boundaries of what is, so that we can find out what can be, what will be. We're always in transition. We're never static. We're always transforming. And to fit all the pieces in that movement is difficult, because as we change, everything around us changes, and we have friends that fall off Sometimes we have whole relationships that end. But those are necessary because they need to make space for this new person that we are. So as we are growing up, the most important part of growing up is to figure out how we fit within ourselves. How can we figure out, how can we explore all of those different puzzle pieces to construct our whole self? Once we do that, we become self-possessed. We become the authors of our sculpture, our masterpiece. And that's very attractive. When we finally take responsibility and authorship for who we are, other people will notice and they will be attracted to us. And a lot of times, the people who are attracted to us are the weird ones. They're the creative ones, the ones that had the courage to find out why cinnamon doesn't work with steak by making steak with cinnamon. So yes, it's about constructing that image. For me, image is really important because human beings have to actually see themselves doing something to be able to do that. They have to see themselves being that person that they want to be able to be that person. So it's like building a self-portrait. You're looking at yourself in the mirror and you don't recognize where does that nose come from? Where do those eyes come from? Do they come from my father, my mother? Do I really like my nose? Maybe I don't. Why? Maybe I didn't like my mother or my father. So then we have to figure out, okay, but this is the only nose I have. So how can I find a way to love this nose? How can I draw this nose in a way that makes sense to me? Once you start doing that and you start putting all the pieces together on that self-portrait, you realize that it's not about the nose, it's not about the eyes, it's not about what hair you have or the shape of your body, but the whole thing fits together. Whenever I give classes, drawing classes, and I work with people on self-portraiture, I tell them that their nose belongs on their face because it fits their face. And they have to understand that their face is unique, and in its uniqueness, it's special and it's perfect. To be able to understand that that nose could not be on anybody else's face but theirs. And once they can do that, then they start loving that face and that nose and those eyes and everything about them. So yeah, it's all about fitting all the pieces together so that you can fit into a world that fits you. Nice. Once you fit yourself, the world actually fits you, because that's what the world's about. It's a composite of many different pieces, and that's what makes it so beautiful. I hope I made sense.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Thank you, Anna. Cher, you're next, and just to let you know, you're muted at the moment.
Okay, there we go. I'm going to keep this real quick. I am always in transition, always. I have been throughout my entire life. Loneliness has come and gone. And when it comes, I've learned something very unique about it. I have learned that it's an awareness mechanism. It's a mechanism that I can use to raise my awareness as to what's going on inside of me, what's going on around in my world. What is it I need to pay attention to or to change? What choices, like Bina had said, what choices am I making that maybe I don't want to be making, or maybe I need to do a different choice? So that's how I'm kind of seeing it. Using it as an awareness mechanism, it has pulled me from impossible situations. Sil, a shout out to you. It has pulled me from impossible situations to very possible situations where I can live the way that I do, even if things are a little bit challenging, most mornings, I still find ways to make the impossible possible because of being aware that, you know, I live in a very different and unique type of arrangement. Woman my age raising a child my age, the age that he is, with the challenges that he has. It's not easy. And it does get lonely at times. However, there's this big thing that I haven't heard anybody mention yet. And I'm going to say it, and hopefully I'm not going to be wrong for it, but I had to learn how to ask for my needs and wants. I had to learn how to do that. I had to learn how to reach out and say, I'm lonely, I'm lost, I need support, I need to talk to other grandparents, I need to talk to other people who understand this experience. That to me is the value that I'm finding in this community and in the community of Sassy. So to me, that loneliness, yes, man, Bina, it is a choice. It's a choice. And I hate to say that, but it is. We choose that. We can also choose, though, to help ourselves out of it. So that's it. I'm done.
Thank you, Shay. Yeah, I think that's really so important, actually, is that, you know, sometimes we just don't know to ask or know where to ask or how to ask, and we need to find people. We need to get out and ask. We need to ask ourselves as well. Sil, you wanted to...
We don't believe we can ask. Beliefs. We are so constrained by our beliefs. It's unbelievable how our beliefs can limit us. Misbeliefs, really, and false associations. I want to touch on something that Norma said. Norma always makes very interesting comments and questions. She said, do you feel lonely when surrounded by people, trying to understand what it is? So I wrote a long response for Norma there, and it brought out a lot. So I'm just going to read what I wrote instead of saying it again. So I said, I would say, Norma, when we feel lonely, when we're surrounded by others, it's because we are not connecting to the fullness of ourselves, and thus we feel lack. We are one, and I mean here capital O1, right? As in all of us are one, like my background behind me. It's a one, but it's comprised of individual points, and this is what we are too. When we say we are one, we are a part of a whole. So we drops in the ocean, we are both drop and ocean. So when we understand this, we are one. When we're not connected to our full selves, though, as in not accepting and loving ourselves appropriately, then we likewise are disconnected from others. If we're disconnected from ourselves, we cannot be connected to that oneness, and we're not connected to others, right? And therefore, so when we, in that sense, that if I love myself, it doesn't mean that I am the full ocean already. I'm not perfect. I am a process. I'm in process. So when I accept and love myself as a learner and a grower, as something in process, as something developing and growing, there's a completeness in that understanding that I am in process, right? So the core of the issue is that the more we are our full selves, the more we are that capital O1. And thus we can connect to others, because ultimately we are others and cannot possibly be lonely. Yes?
Yeah, love that. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for getting in on the comments, and thank you to everyone for all the comments there. A big shout out to Don Lotus, who's been actually taking snippets of everybody's wisdom and sharing them in the comments when they've been shared. So that's been really good of him, and really enjoyed reading them all, as well as listening to everyone. So, like, the question that's on my mind is, well, the thing that's on my mind, first of all, before I ask the question, is that in some respects, loneliness is kind of like a misleading word, a bit like closure in a lot of ways, because it's more of a sign, it's more of a feeling that there's something where we're not accepting ourselves, or we need to do some work, and maybe things aren't quite right for us. Yeah, well, we are, more than actually so the term lonely. We're alone, and we need some other things to be able to be alone. You know, we need some self-acceptance, some self-awareness, a better image of ourselves, and also a better world view to see how that we fit into the world around us. So for somebody who's feeling lonely, because they're changing their life and they're not aware, yeah, exactly, Shared, trees are never lonely. And I was just thinking earlier, does a flower, before it sprouts out the ground, say, oh, I wonder what everyone's going to think about me? So I don't think so. Yeah, so when we're on the looking to change our lives and we're experiencing this loneliness, or we're just in this place where our life is very challenging, and that causes it makes it difficult for us to socialize and be around other people and be understood, or even understand them. What can we do? What can we do to start to overcome that feeling? What can we do to and work out where it's coming from, maybe? So Jen. Oh, you're muted. Hold on, you're muted. Yeah.
Now you can hear me, right?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm not even sure if it's really overcome is the word, is to go through it. I was fortunate and grateful that I had a mentor and a therapist who explained to me the process. And so I knew kind of what to expect before I went into this process. Although there's a lot of individual variation and experiential nuance, right? There is a process. And I was grateful that someone kind of let me know what to expect a little bit, because that's what my brain needed at the time. At the time, earlier in my recovery, I kind of needed to know what, because I was in more of a fear-based state. And like now it doesn't matter. I don't need to know things, but back then I did. And so by someone sharing with me and understanding or learning about the process, it helped me depersonalize in a little bit, helped me weather the more difficult stages a little bit more. Obviously, the other step that everyone's hit on is a mix of reaching out in addition to your self-focus and restorative time. There's nothing wrong with spending time alone. It's deeply connecting and important, and it gives you information. And we also we're designed to have that restorative aloneness as well as intermittent connection in some way, whether it's through support, friendship, something like that, volunteering, taking the focus off you for a while. It's that kind of back and forth that we kind of need. The other pieces that I would say that helped me a lot was acceptance that came with understanding that this transitionary kind of lonely experience is natural. Everything goes through it. Everything in nature that goes through this kind of weakening before we get stronger. And that kind of, we call it loneliness or aloneness, but it is a process that has a cycle, and every living thing kind of goes through that. And for me, it helped to have a grieving process for it. Generations and civilizations prior to us always had grieving rituals of sort, to help us go from here to here, from boyhood to manhood, from the loss of this identity to a new one. And we don't have as much ritual in our current society. And I think it's really important to kind of help yourself get through that process of loneliness, is to identify what is it that I'm grieving, that I'm letting go of, and I'm in this no man's land and I'm going towards, and how can I establish even small ritual? I mean, how it's popular to write things on paper and then burn it. For me, it was river rocks with things that I would let go, things like that. So incorporating a little bit of a ritual to help yourself process through was extremely helpful to me. And the other piece of it, the last piece of it, is not to rush it. I mean, nobody wants to linger, right, in that stage. It's not pleasant feeling, and it's also not the way we're designed, and it's also not helpful. However, although we don't need to prolong it with thought, we also don't have to bypass it with distraction. So somewhere in between that is a spectator kind of experience where you're letting it happen, watching it happen, not overly identifying with it, but also not brushing past it too quickly. And it does have its natural time life if you can kind of just be patient and get what you can out of that experience.
Yeah, thank you. Wise words. Anna, you're next.
Yes, from my own experience, I found out that when I'm lonely, there's a lot of emotion that builds up, a lot of doubt, a lot of kind of a feeling of being lost because you are in transition. When you're feeling lonely is because you're not quite fitting in, and that's part of development. That's part of one's development. When we are transforming, we are changing, and in that change, we don't fit for a little bit until it starts clicking. So it's hard. It's really hard, and you go through a lot of emotional stuff. If you have the emotional integrity, or if you are someone who's able to feel emotions without being overwhelmed, it's okay to be alone. It's okay to turn inward and figure out what's going on inside. Look for inspiration, look for new ideas that come up in that quiet space of, it's not loneliness, it's solitude. But if you are like me, who was not very emotionally regulated for a long time, those emotions can be overwhelming, and they can actually be quite dangerous in that loneliness. So I recommend reach out to people, reach out to friends, reach out to professionals. There are people who can help you work through those powerful emotions and give you some tools to work with. All of us here are experts at it. We all have different tools that can help you figure out who you are and where you're at and how you fit. So it's really important not to let yourself become overwhelmed by those powerful emotions of loneliness. Reach out. There's a lot of, do weird things. Go for a walk where you've never been. Go to an event somewhere, a musical event. Meet different people. Get yourself out of yourself. Volunteer somewhere. I found that's one of the best remedies for loneliness, is to offer service to others. As weird as it sounds, when you get out of yourself, you don't feel so lonely, because what happens when you do that, when you offer yourself to others, you find the gifts that you have inside. And that's what makes you fit in, your gifts, that special stuff that you came into this world with. That is what makes you fit in and not be so lonely. Because once we feel that we are useful, that we have something to contribute, then being alone is not a big deal, because we know we have something to offer. Yes, so reach out.
Yeah.
Always.
Love that. Thank you. Sil.
Sleeping at the wheel. So you asked Matt, what can we do about loneliness, right? And our tendency, unfortunately, another one of those profound misbeliefs, is that when we have a problem, we need to fix it, replace it rather. Like I mentioned before, if I've got debt and I simply fix my debt, it doesn't mean I've got income. So replacement is the key. And to add on to what others have said, when we look at replacing what we are, if I'm feeling lonely, well, I've got a very simple tip for you. Just start by doing everything opposite to what you've been doing, right? Maybe not exactly opposite, but more or less in the world of opposite. I have a whole philosophy of opposites, very profound thing. But if you just simply take everything you've been doing and turn it upside down and start doing other than what you've been doing, you're going to find whatever I've been doing resulted in loneliness. If I start doing everything differently, Well, likely not. And so you learn, so you grow. And this simple act of doing things differently is what Anna said. Go and do this, go and do stuff, walk, whatever. Do different things. But when you do the opposite of what you've been doing as a starting point, not necessarily as an end point, but when you start to explore this, it's very, very profound. And this leads to incredible replacement. Now, I don't just mean doing as in, physical things like going for a walk. Okay, I'm sitting at home, I'm going for a walk. No, I mean also the doing of how you are, my attitudes, my mindsets. How tolerant am I? How patient am I? Oh, you know what? I'm not very patient. Well, no wonder nobody wants to hang out with me and I'm lonely, because I'm totally impatient and intolerant and I'm a jackass. Well, okay, stop being a jackass, and get a move on with being somebody you want to be and people will want to be with. It doesn't mean that you're going to go looking for popularity and approval, but just stop being in your bubble. Change. Do something different. Be different, and things will start to change. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sil. Rita.
Yes. A word that is very important is the trust. To trust the process. And I don't believe in quick fixes or run away from your feelings or just doing stuff if you still are working on the emotions. But music, meditation is very important. So to get the answers from inside, you have the answer. No one else had your answer for your life. So, and no one else has your feelings. The only one is yourself. And to get these answers, to heal yourself, to find these dark spots and fill them with light, you have to listen. And for that meditation, I would really recommend that. So, and if like myself, if I felt angry, frustrated, something, I just put on some music I can dance to, because then my whole energy changes. And very often the problem doesn't come back. It's just, okay, it disappeared. But so music and meditation and trust, I would say.
Love it. Yeah, really crucial things. Thank you. Paul, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, integration, right? And it's going to sound really strange. So there are lots of parts of us that we lose. And I think Rika, I think I pronounced that right, said it earlier about soul fragments. In shamanism, we have these retrievals. We have like power animal retrievals, we have power retrievals, we have soul retrievals. When we go through certain types of trauma, certain types of events, portions of our spirit will break off, right? Growing up, all of the times when we were perhaps in our most exuberant self and we were cut down and we were told that our fantasies were flights of fantasy and give up being an astronaut or whatever it might be, we end up stuffing all of them things down into the shadow. When you start to kind of do the work, whatever you consider the transformative process, it's really a process of integration. You start peering into the shadow and you suddenly realize you have all these gifts, all these abilities, all these things that you've stuffed in there. You start to pull them out, you start to integrate them into yourself. When you've experienced perhaps arguments or parts of your life where people again have put you down or they told you you're not good enough, you're not worthy enough, they've stolen your power. If you take that power back, you bring back to you skills and gifts, confidence, self-esteem, self-awareness. You call back to yourself. And in that process of integrating into yourself all of these lost parts, that sense of loneliness begins to slip away because you start to feel more whole, you start to feel more integrated. So for me, like the combat and that sense of loneliness is to go around and gather up all those lost parts of yourself. You'll find that actually there's a lot more to you than you realize. You're a lot more fuller, you're a lot more whole, you're a lot more complete. The necessity then to look for connections. I'm not saying that connections are wrong, like connections are important. We're all connected, we're all having these conversations, we're all learning and sharing. Someone mentioned, I think it was Anna earlier, go find a therapist or a healer. Well, obviously, because sometimes there are difficult things. But the more complete, the more whole, the more we call back to ourselves those lost parts, the necessity for other people becomes less. So that when we do connect, actually it becomes something more purposeful, more meaningful, some more sublime, beautiful, integral, stick whatever lovely word you want to put in there, but it becomes something more important than just I could really do with a person right now, because that's just more of that attachment and running away from the self.
Yeah,
that's the sense on it.
I think that's where it's coming down to, is it's a big sense of self-awareness and self-acceptance. These two things are very crucial to loneliness. So Brenda, I saw you had your hand up, and
yeah, 100% what Paul just said. Thank you for saying that. I wanted to say it before. I do shaman energy healing, and I've been doing it since 2009, and it's just wonderful. Animal totems, ancestors, spirit guides, your higher self, your authentic soul. I've never felt lonely since I've gone and met all these gatekeepers, and since I've met all of these spirits and guides, and since I've done so many gatherings or soul retrievals, power retrievals, I've done so many of them on myself to collect back the pieces of myself that I put away. We put them away to shelter them like a 5-year-old child. And you stay here and be safe, I'll come back for you. And then we don't know how to go back, but we know how to put them away. So we give our power away to our teachers and our parents and all sorts of people. And then we put ourselves away, and then we feel so lonely. Well, yeah, you're working on like 20% of yourself. So find a shaman. There's a bunch in this group here. Find this person that you trust, that you work with, and try some of this stuff. Like if you're just hearing it for the first time, it sounds absolutely bizarre, but you just have to try it. You just have to try it, put yourself in it. You go into a ceremony. So this facilitator puts you into a relaxed state, and you go into the ceremony. You can always stop. It's always you having the experience. No one's telling you what to do. And it's just like Paul said, you collect back so many pieces of yourself. You heal that 5-year-old child that you put away, and then everybody is with you. You have totems, like I said, and totems and all the people, and it's all in you, and you just feel a connection to Mother Earth, and you just want to love and help everybody in the world. And I'm just thrilled that I went on this journey, and I am, and other people here are thrilled to help lead anybody else through this journey. So wonderful, Paul. Thank you very much. And I love that dragonfly. I've got dragonflies, butterflies all over the place. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Rita, did you want to add something to that?
Just a short one, because I think very many people, me as well, has stopped asking for help. The universe, I mean. And we are connected in a multiverse, so, but to just ask for help and see what comes, because the universe hears you. I've done that a lot. And then the phone rings or something comes up on the internet that actually is good for me. So to actually ask for help, ask for signs around you, and it will listen. Yes, in this loneliness process, I mean, it's important. And also, don't forget the imagination, because the imagination can take you everywhere as long as you are finished. So it will come.
Yeah. Awesome. And I think, yeah, really.
It's easy to get totally black, but there is always something around that want to balance this, because if not, you will be dead. So to ask for help, use imagination. Yeah, the universe listen.
Yeah, I think that's crucial. It's that just asking for help, even if it's just literally like right, I'm good, I need help, I need to solve this, is enough for stuff to start coming your way.
Yeah,
But you have to have your eyes open.
This prayer, you know, this prayer is important.
Yeah, absolutely. Sil.
I want to give a shout out to Don Lotus. They're doing a fantastic job, Don. Really awesome. All those takeaways, really, really awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to ask in terms of, or not ask, but comment in terms of asking. We don't necessarily need to ask. We can just put ourselves out there by way of sharing. And through sharing, we make connectivity. So this is a very powerful thing to do. Yes, I was just going to say, you can ask Cher about this. Cher's a really awesome sharer. And through, I guess that's why her name is Cher. I call her Cher, but it's Cher, right, Cher? So sharing is really, really profound. Bring lots and lots of moreness into your life just by sharing. Putting yourself out there a little bit, in other words. Just opening the door. You know, when you're sharing, your door's not closed, you know, like physically. You're saying, hey, you're welcome to come into my house when you share. And of course, this is a very profound invitation. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what we're doing now, isn't it? What we're doing now? Sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, get out and share for sure. Definitely. Brenda.
Yeah, well, we're just talking about asking for help. They say thought plus emotion equals prayer. So just put it out there to the universe that you want someone to come to you. Put the thought in it, really concentrate, think about it, center yourself, and put some emotion into it, and just be aware someone's going to come knocking on your door. Someone's going to come into your life, and just be open to what they're saying. And maybe they're the person that is the answer to your prayer. You don't have to, you know, use the yellow pages or go on the internet. You sometimes just put it out to the universe, and someone will show up and be there for you. So thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, so I think that's a really Sil, again, did you have something else to add?
No, I didn't actually, but I just didn't forget to put my hand down, but that's okay. I did have a question for Cher. Cher, in terms of replacement and the power of replacement to change what you do, if Cher can maybe comment a bit on that.
I'm not sure I follow the question. You asked about
yes, you know, I was saying, Matthew asked, what can we do about loneliness? And I said, it's about replacement. Not just look to fix your loneliness, because fixing is problematic. It doesn't necessarily give the resolution. But when we focus on replacing what we were, how that deals with the problem. Yes. And I thought you were a good one to share some more on that.
Yeah. And actually, I want to, but my mind is tracking someplace else briefly.
Oh, okay. No problem. No problem. No worries. No worries. I'll throw it open to anybody then, you know.
Right.
Or just comment a little bit on that. Because here's the thing with replacement. Sorry.
Okay. No, you know how my mind works when I'm put on the spot.
No worries. No worries.
No, it's a.
So I was just going to comment on that to maybe get your.
Could I comment there? It's a void. So the universe doesn't like void. It likes balance. So you take the negativity out of your body, negativity or heaviness when you're doing a ritual, doing grounding, you take the negativity out. Now there's a void. The universe doesn't like voids. So you open yourself up to the positivity. So positivity from the universe, from Mother Earth, from Father Sky, from the trees, all the good energy around you, so that whatever left, there's something new. So you're asking for these toxic people or people that just aren't serving you anymore to leave your life, to be open for these new people to come in. So just remember the yin, the yang. So something's gone, something comes in. So just don't be closed-minded and say, I'm never going to do this, I'm never going to do this, that puts very negative contracts into your body and your subconscious. So you just say, I'm going to try this and I'm going to let go of this so that this could come in. Just like I'm going to take something out of my closet so I can buy something new, so that it's a balance. I think that is what it maybe is what Sil is talking about.
Yes, and there's another deep, profound reason why when we start to replace, it makes all. because of the way the brain works. I mentioned this before. Emphasis literally rewires your brain, right?
Yes.
So if I'm emphasizing problem, well, now my brain is focused on problem. And if this is my brain behind me, right? And all I'm doing is I'm connecting whatever the problem issue is to more problem and to more problem beyond that. And all I start to see eventually is problem on top of problem. And I end up living in a world of problems. This is why people go to therapy focusing on their problems and they stay there for their lifetime, right? But when we focus on the replacement, now I'm emphasizing something different. I'm emphasizing something new. And the brain starts firing up into that. And suddenly I've got stuff coming into my brain that I never even thought of before, because connection leads to more connection, leads to more connection. But we want to guide that connection. And this is what I was asking Cher about, exactly, because I've seen this happen there, right, Cher?
Right, yes. And actually, so though that both of you guys kind of brought me back to where my mind was headed for that question, for the whole question, actually. Specifically, a lot of people will focus on after the effects, after the situation, after whatever, and when they're already in the loneliness, they want to go back and find out what caused it, what's going on. So where I'm going, where my mind automatically goes, is to being in the depth of it, in the pit, in the situation that's creating that loneliness. And a lot of times, to see your way out of it, you do need to have that replacement. You do need to have something that's going to help you and assist you step over a threshold, basically, of step over from the abyss into some place that's got more light. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Take somebody who's being victimized at the point right now. Say they're being victimized. They have to be able to see their way past their beliefs, their false beliefs, their negativity, the negative thoughts, so that they can start to help themselves out of that loneliness. So that's why I'm saying take it from the abyss and actually cross over into some kind of area where they can actually start to function and think and have a little bit more light, kind of like everybody was talking about. So I don't know if that explains it or not to you, but I just know for me it helps.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
It's huge.
Thank you.
One more point quickly, Matthew.
Yes.
When we think of moving away from where we are to something new, sometimes this is really difficult, especially if we've been in real deep entrenched behavior. And I liken it to changing our skin, literally changing your physical skin. The skin is the largest organ in your body. It's one thing, your skin, right? Now imagine you've got to change your skin. You've got to take off your old skin before you can put on the new skin. Now imagine that point of being when you've got no skin. You're standing there with all your nerves raw and exposed. This, I call it being in the void. And when we undergo profound change, sometimes we've gotten, we've let go of the old and we're moving towards the new. We're in that space where all our nerves are raw and exposed before we get to put the new one on, because we've got to take the old one off completely first. And that's a very profound understanding. And this sense of deep discomfort puts a lot of people off change because it is uncomfortable. But if you know it's part of the process and that you kind of need to go through it sometimes, and then it becomes acceptable and you can handle it.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is the thing, is you don't know what's on the other side. Yeah. So you've not been there yet. It's that fear of the unknown. You're always going to get this pullback, but take it from all of us and everybody that's been here tonight that it is well worth it to push through to the other side using all the methods. Right. Paul, you wanted to add something?
I do. I just wanted to jump in on the bit about replacement, because I was sat there and it kind of made me think. One of the greatest wisdoms I learned from being a drug addict is that when you take away the addiction, right, you end up with a void, right? There's a desire to replace that behavior with something else. And we're used to kind of replacing certain habits with other things. Sometimes it's not necessary to replace a behavior or a process or a thing with something. Sometimes what we need to do is just to sit there with the not replacement. I think Cyril mentioned the void or the emptiness, just to kind of sit with the space rather than the desire to just immediately fill that with something else, because that just becomes another attachment. And that's how addictive behavior forms. Sometimes actually there's not a necessity to a place just to sit and experience. I just kind of wanted to add that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, I think that's true. Like, so again, like there's this fear of what is the worst that's going to happen if you sit with an uncomfortable feeling. You know, not too much. Brenda, what did you want to add?
With my training with my shaman, we were always taught to give an offering. So I just wanted to put that out. You take some sage or tobacco if you can't find anything, something from Mother Earth, a leaf or anything. You blow a breath of your life force into it very gently and thank the universe for your healing. And then you put it on a Mother Earth, usually not on your property, because sometimes the way the universe works, it might decide what your payment's going to be for your healing that you got. So this way you've decided this is what your payment's going to be. You're going to give this offering to Mother Earth, and it's in many different civilizations for different offerings. It makes you feel just wonderful, and it gives you that moment to yourself to just to connect to yourself and what you've gained from whatever it is you're doing, meditations or whatever you're doing, just grounding. So it's a lovely ritual. I love that ritual. And then if you use white sage, I know people that have done it and they put it in their hands afterwards and smell their hands, and then just it's like a little treat for yourself. And it's a very good way to pay it forward to Mother Earth and thank her for what she's giving to you as your healing. So.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. And thank you for that very practical tip there. Right. I think I'm going to call it a day. We nearly made it to 2 hours this week. So just to recap on the show as quickly as I can, although it's been a absolutely mind-blowing show with some great pearls of wisdom. So thank you, first of all, to everybody who's watched. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you to everyone who's here and who was here earlier and had to leave. So just to talk about loneliness. Loneliness is a feeling of disconnection often from yourself and others. It can be created by an expectation that things should be a certain way. It can be an unfamiliarity because things are different. It can be an attachment to connection, like a codependency. It's common when changing unhelpful behaviors, such as people pleasing and having no boundaries. Whether it's you're feeling lonely because you're transitioning or you just not found your place in the world yet. If we don't share or feel we can share, we will feel lonely. Often we seek attachment with others because we just haven't accepted ourselves yet. Loneliness can be a place of transformation. It can be a gift, an opportunity, a place to get to know yourself and attract better things that are more aligned with the person you really want to be. You can expect pushbacks, alienation, but also expect great support if you ask for it. Loneliness is a choice. It's a perspective. From being alone, you can find a stronger self-connection. The connection to the self is the biggest bonus, as Anastasia said. Loneliness is a feeling that says you need to do something, and that's just usually become more self-aware, accept yourself, see the whole you, and see that you're just another equal human, the same as all of us. So just ask, put it out there. You know, if you're feeling lonely today, listen to some dance music, meditate, share, get involved with others, give back, sit with it, or find something else to do and replace it. Thank you, everybody. Been great to see you here.
Cheers, Matt. Cheers, Matt. Bye-bye, man.
Thank you, Matt.